What happens when the money's broken, right? And Bitcoiners make a meme of it and they say time theft.
Mhm.
What happens when the money is broken? What are the consequences of broken money to a society?
Yeah, another frame that's useful for comparing such disparate things as an individual and an economy, right? That the individual is much more concrete, right? Where we have a lot of lived experience with the individual. An economy is something much more abstract, right? We engage in it and we participate in it, but you don't see an economy, right, in any concrete sense. But what they both are in a modern secular parlance is that they're both complex adaptive systems. So what are they doing? They're, both the individual and the economy, they're trying to model the world. They're trying to adapt to it, right? To overcome obstacles and problems and whatnot. And a key process to that end is communication, right? Like, for instance, if you're a human trying to adapt to your environment, well, it's pretty important that you have eyesight and good hearing. If you're in the middle of the savannah or the jungle and you're blind, right? You're going to get natural selection is going to have its way with you. So your communication systems as an individual complex adaptive system, if they're not functioning well, any of your five senses, but obviously something like eyesight would be more important than maybe taste. That's going to, although taste can also be important, right? To taste if something's poisonous or not. That's going to inhibit you. That's going to inhibit your survival ability. And so when we look at the complex adaptive system of an economy, when you start screwing with the money, right, that is the nervous system of the economic organism that we're all participating in, that we're all cellular participants in, to use a biological analogy. When you start screwing with that communications network, well, then that complex adaptive system loses its ability to perceive the world and model the world and adapt to the world. And so it just throws the whole thing into disarray and really jeopardizes its survivability. Just like the guy in the jungle that's blind, right? Like, his inability to the media of exchange of human perception via his eyes, if that's not working, then he's unlikely to live. Like, his chances of survival plummet. Just like if we screw up the money, right? If we add noise to the communication network of money that's intended to be, that in an ideal world, in a Bitcoin world, would just be pure signal, right? All price changes would be reflections of shifts in supplies of capital or demand for capital or goods. In a world where money's being debased and monopolized and corrupted, etc., those price changes are full of noise. You don't know what it is, right? It's like it could be a new policy, could be could be currency counterfeiting, could be this, could be that. It's it's the destruction of the adaptive mechanism. The mechanism by which the global economy adapts to reality is broken when we break the money, just like the mechanism by which the individual adapts to his environment is broken when you blind him or take away one of his other key senses. So I guess you could maybe distill it down to just the throughput of information, is that when information is not flowing, and this is kind of a weird, I actually think we use information as if it's a noun, right? Like it's this thing that moves around, but it's really just the pattern of one thing influencing the pattern of another thing. And so I like to think of it more as a verb, that the movements of one thing put the other thing that it's connected to into a new formation. So it's, again, we're back to this continuous fluid reality where everything is connected to everything else, and information is just the sequential rearrangement of all these things interacting. When you inhibit that, then you start to accrue misfitness, right? Like the system's not adapting to changes in reality. And so if the system and reality are very close when it's adapting well, they start to diverge, right? If the money's broken or you're blind, and that divergence is a representation of risk, essentially, and eventually that risk is realized. And I think this kind of frames up things like the Austrian business cycle theory, where once you start debasing the currency, you get exacerbated economic booms and busts until one of two things happens: either the currency hyperinflates or they stop printing money, and you get this deflationary snap back to reality. And of course, historically, typically, it culminates in hyperinflation because the central bank that's debasing the currency has both the profit motive and the precedent to do that. So you undermine the adaptive capacity of the species when you screw with the money, just like you undermine the adaptive capacity of an individual when you blind them.